If you don't live in Sandestin, you should at least visit this time of year. It is beautiful. I hope you're having a good week. If you're in the gathering at Sandestin or attend, I'm going to give you a little preview of what the sermon will be on Sunday. If you're catching this on Facebook, you're kind and brave, and maybe it'll be helpful to you. We're going to look at the book of Habakkuk. Now, I teased last Sunday that I had a dear friend tell me one time at the back of the church, preacher, you sure do preach a lot of Jesus. And I like that, and I do. So we'll give Jesus a little rest this week, though he'll be with us. And we'll think from the book of Habakkuk. Now, I've got to ask you honestly, when is the last time you heard a sermon from Habakkuk? Or really and truthfully, any of what we call in our terms the minor prophets. I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate being called minor prophets, but that is the name for them. And I'll list them for you. I wrote them down. There's Hosea, there's Joel, there's Amos and Obadiah and Jonah and Micah. And one of my favorites, Nahum. We know almost nothing about Nahum. And I must admit to you, I have never preached a sermon for Nahum, nor have I heard one. There's also Habakkuk, who we will deal with Sunday, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi, and another personal favorite, Haggai, who I've never preached on, but we had an umpire that raised us playing baseball as kids that we called him Haggai, because that's how he called a strike. We didn't know his name, and he liked being called Haggai, which sounds a little bit like strike. Those are the minor prophets. They all have quick and basic themes for God's people. They're all contextual. It's good to know what's going on in their world when they deliver their message, but their message is timeless, and it still speaks to us if we'll break it down. Habakkuk's kind of a funny name. I've heard of children calling that book when they're reciting books of the Bible, the book of tobacco. That's close, but it's Habakkuk. And we'll look at Habakkuk's message on Sunday. Just a few thoughts about him and maybe what's going on in the world of Habakkuk, just to get you ready. One thing, these prophets spoke in their own historical settings. And in those settings, it's good to know what the scoop was of what was going on. 7th century BC, probably. We know that this prophet, Habakkuk, comes into a time when the Chaldeans had taken over the children of Israel, and they had taken Jerusalem's population off to Babylon. And there in Babylon, for over a 10-year period, they are slaves and captives, and they wonder just when things will settle down for them or change for them. And Habakkuk steps in as a prophet, as a teacher, probably a worship leader is what we might call him in this current time. He uses a structure or a format that's familiar in Hebrew worship for the 3 chapters of Habakkuk. The first chapter is very common for a worship leader in ancient Hebrew worship. He presents a problem or a complaint that God has with his people, something that's wrong that calls for change and for a deeper response. The second chapter is a lesson for them to remember. You have a problem, your feelings are hurt, you're worried, you're upset. You need to stop and remember the promises of God. God keeps his promises. He does what he says he's going to do. The third chapter deals with a recommitment, almost an altar call for you old Baptists on here, a recommitment to God's ways, that the problem is not enough, or even our feelings about the situation are not enough to keep us from remembering the promise of God and acting accordingly. Well, that's a great lesson for any time. How many of us lose faith because we feel badly, or we feel worried, or feel separated from God. And our feelings get in the way to the point that we don't remember the promises, what God would call the facts. Look at the facts, my child. I keep my promises. I'll bless you. I'll keep you even though you're in pain. And then we recommit to that. That's how we get through, isn't it? It's a great message. So I hope that you're with us on Sunday. If you're at the gathering, please remember also that Sunday the 23rd is a special day. Billy Gray, the pastor emeritus who was with us for 9 years, has retired. And finally, the church is getting an opportunity to recognize that retirement. COVID has kept us from being able to do that. But Billy will be present on the 23rd. We'll be preaching. I hope that you'll be there. You take care and have a great week.